You are not where you want to be in life, not because you are incapable, but because you have let fear control your actions. But fear isn't what's keeping you stuck. Waiting for it to disappear is. So the question is, how can we move forward in our lives when fear shows up and feels almost paralyzing without having to feel confident or ready first? My name is Tiago Raposo Santos. I'm a psychologist with over 14 years of experience working as a therapist and developing leaders within organizations. In this video, you will learn the exact process that I used in order to change and rewire my mind, how I went from having intense social anxiety and paralyzing fear every time that I had to speak up, to now being able to earn my living by communicating and teaching, and the scientific method from cognitive psychology that we use in order to help people overcome fears and phobias, broken down in a way that you can immediately apply. Because let's be real, the real battle is not outside, it's happening within. So fear has this survivability function or role in order to help us to increase our likelihood of survivability. Now the problem is that if our brain or our minds perceive something as a threat because it lacks context or it misinterprets certain signals, what happens is our body will trigger the defense mechanism in order to prevent that situation that possibly can be threatened, and this is what then impacts us from our ability to then move forward in our life. So in a nutshell, fear is actually a very positive effect in our life because it warns us of something that can be dangerous. And there is actually some studies that it's very rare. It's a very it's a condition that is very rare. But there are some people that their amygdalas that are damaged, and what happened was they stopped feeling fear, and as a consequence, they started to notice that these people began to indulge and engage into behaviors that were threatening to their lives. They would misperceive certain cues and certain signals that most people would evaluate them as threats, and as a consequence they would have the proper reactions in order to protect them. So while we all wish we could just erase fear from ourselves, in terms of from a biological perspective, in terms of our body, it's actually very important to experience fear. Now the problem with fear, as I mentioned, is that sometimes it's too exacerbated, which will then paralyze us. And when we become paralyzed with fear, when we let our brains start to govern our life choices, our decisions, that's when it starts to become a problem, because we become hostage and imprisoned in this web that cages us. Now our brain is just afraid because he's afraid that certain circumstances are, or is interpreting that certain circumstances will be threatening, but in fact they might just be new, and therefore because they are new, our brain is lacking context and information. In the previous video, I've explained that our brain works by is like a simulator, is predicting the reality based on the experience and what we are taught. It's creating models, mental models, and based on these mental models, it creates hypotheses. And when we lack information, because maybe it's the first time we are doing that, our mind is going to then trigger or be more alert, because our amygdala is like, okay, we lack information about this, so therefore there is a high chance that something like a lion can show up because I lack context information. Okay, and that's why often people ask me in my sessions, it's a very common question: how can I become more confident? And especially now in social media, we see all these advice of positive affirmations and so on. But while it can help in a sense, it's not very effective, because in order to build your confidence, which is in opposition to feeling afraid, you need to build based on predictability, and that predictability is based on experience. So you only actually become confident in something as you do more of that thing and you start to collect tangible evidence that proves to yourself and basically to your brain, creates the model that, okay, I've done this activity number of times and basically these are the outputs, and every time I did this I had certain results or nothing threatening happened. Therefore now that I'm going to engage with this in the same context, I can predict based on my past experience what can happen. Doesn't mean that it will happen according to my past, but my brain will feel at ease because he has enough evidence that is supporting this analysis. And I've been noticing this where when I'm delivering a workshop on a new topic or to a new audience that I've never delivered before, I immediately start to feel more anxious. And I know that it is not because I've not prepared enough or because I don't know about the subject. I know that it is my brain now because I'm engaging with new people in a new context, and because he doesn't have enough data that is supporting on, okay, yes, you might know about the subject, but you don't know these people or you never experienced this. And for example, it's happening the same with my transition now to record videos. I'm very used to deliver workshops and trainings, but my mind never did this one-to-one with the camera. I'm used to see people and faces and feed off reactions. So there is a part of me that is still getting used, and is every time I'm starting to record and to engage in a video, I feel way more anxious than if I was delivering to a group of 40 or 50 different people. So fear is important. Now, the key is not in not feeling fear, because fear will, again, as I mentioned, is a part of our own survivability tool. What we need to learn is, how can I move on with my life? How can I cope with this fear? Especially as I'm transitioning to something new in my life, how can I make sure that this fear is not impairing me and preventing me from growing? To illustrate this point, let me share a personal story. So in the last video, I shared that I grew up believing that, with this self-limiting belief that I was not enough, that I was not intelligent. And what happened was, and the reason for that is because I was always compared with my older brother. So every time I could do something, I was immediately compared with, but your brother at that age could already do X, Y, and Z. So that made me believe that no matter what I do, it's never enough. Whatever I do is always considered negative in comparison with my brother. So I grew up believing that I was just a dumb ass. Like I was not smart enough because I was always negative compared. And as a defense mechanism, what happens in our brain is, okay, if Tiago speaks up, there is an opportunity that people will validate this self-limiting belief. If I'm communicating out loud to others, there's a chance that they will see that I'm just dumb, that I'm not intelligent. They will find me out. So as a defense mechanism, immediately our ego tries to protect us. So what happens was, I started to withdraw from any sort of possibility that could expose myself. So I would not engage in any sort of social interactions because they could just mean that I was exposed. So every time that I had to speak out loud throughout my school journey, like, I would just feel this intense build-up of anxiety, like until a point that I was just so paralyzed that I could not even speak. Now I can see that they were just symptoms of extreme anxiety, until a point where I was experiencing panic attacks. But the problem is, the more that I withdraw from those experiences because I was just afraid, the more information I was reinforcing my brain that, yeah, if Tiago is removing himself from this context, it means that it's actually a threat. So the next time that that an opportunity for me to go forward and to communicate, my brain had been reinforced and rewarded by having the negative behavior, which is like, okay, you can't be here because we have all stored all this data that in the last 10 years, every time that you speak up, the common behavior is to withdraw. Therefore, this means that most likely it is a real threat. And that's how our brain functions, is by building these predicting realities, not only based on our beliefs, but also based on our experience. So every time that my brain is predicting a negative outcome and I behave in accordance to that outcome, I'm reinforcing that reality to my brain, which means that the next time that I'm confronted with the same reality, I will have the same response. Okay, so at that time, and the shift personally happened when I had to defend my master thesis. In that moment, I had to do a life decision: is either I'm not going to complete my degree, or I have to face this monster. And quite honestly, the only reason I was able to do it was because I did not want to disappoint my parents. Like, after all those years studying and paying for my studies, I had to do it. I had to complete it. And the shift, the key point in my life, the turning point, was when I went there and I faced that monster and I slayed that dragon. It made me realize that what I was afraid was not real. Because in my mind, I had been all these years afraid of that specific moment, but the reality was way less terrifying than what I was imagining. So I understood that, okay, when I'm afraid about something and I have all these different narratives playing out in my mind, that doesn't mean, first of all, that they are going to play out, that they are going to happen. Secondly, even if they happen, they don't seem in real life as daunting as in my mind. Thirdly, I also realized that even if all that I'm imagining happened, it was just a short moment. It was just like enduring that painful moment for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then I could move on with my life. And fourth, I still had my home, I still had my animals, I still had my friends, I still had my family. So even if I had to do something hard or difficult and endure it for a while, I'm not going to die for it. I'm not going to become homeless just because I have to speak publicly, or someone thinks that I'm not smart. And that's really when my life started to change. And during that moment, and we are speaking that I was around 21, 22 years old back then, I was in opposition to the real life. I was quite well known in the online world. So in order to, since I was such a bad character in my real life in terms of social skills, I withdraw as a defense mechanism to playing online. So I was, in essence, playing an online gaming specifically most of my day in order to withdraw from all these difficulties that I had in my personal life. And in that moment, I was really, really, really good. Like, I was one of the most high level players in Europe playing World of Warcraft. And if you guys know, or even if you don't know the game, in essence, it is a game where you start up as a level 1 character. It's an online world. So there is a virtual world, you are a character, and that character can interact with other characters from other people. So there is a virtual world. You begin that as a level 1, pretty weak, with minimal spells and things that you can do, and then you start to build up. And I was so good in that game. I was particularly, there are 2 modes of that game: the PvE, so play versus environment, so you team up with other players to defeat monsters. Let's in a nutshell, that's basically what happens. And then you have PvP, which is play versus play, so I'm basically against another person. And I was one of the most high rated players in Europe back then. If there was like Twitch and streamers and the possibility of being like an esport player, I would probably have went through that route. But that was, at least here in Portugal, that was not a possibility, and for sure my mom would not let me either way. So in contrast, what happened was I was very popular. Everyone wanted to play me. Everyone wanted to do things with me. It's like, if you think in real life terms, like Taylor Swift, right? Everyone wants to follow her. Like everyone, opportunities, like she doesn't have to do much, and the opportunities just fly onto her. So it was kind of like the same. Now, my mom started to pressure me, and thank God for that. She was like, okay, Tiago, you have to do something with your life. You have to do something, because like I'm not going to let you, as a 22-year-old man, to just keep playing video games or online games or whatever you are doing with your life the entire day. Like you are either going to find a job or an internship. Like you have to do something. And she basically pressured me to do something, and I did. So since I was so bad at my real life, but I was so good in my online life, I started to kind of ponder on it. I was like, okay, I started my online game as a level 1 character. You are basically starting naked. You just have like pants and a mini weapon. And that's it. Then you have to do quests, and those quests give you experience, and then you basically level up until you reach the max level. And when you reach the max level, that's when you start to equip and have all that shiny armor and good stuff. So I started to look at how did I become so good in that online game? And I realized that I did not start as an elite player or as a pro player or someone that was all that good. I started basically a newbie. I did not know anything about the game. I just started as a level 1 character, very weak. And through quests, they gave me experience. And that experience, by doing quests, they made me level up my character. And in essence, what happens is, as you level up, there is a book, a spell book, and when you reach a certain level, let's say you start as level 1, when you reach level 4, you can go to your trainer and unlock a new set of abilities. Okay, so let's say that I started level 1 and I can only do one activity or one sort of spell. At level 4, I can go to my trainer and unlock a new ability. And then as you keep progressing, that's how you start to build up your character. And I thought, okay, what if my real life is, at 22 years old, is the level 1 character that I began? And what can I do in order to level up in the real life? I need to do quests. Quests are like missions. Like you have to do like X, Y, and Z, and then if you complete these tasks or missions, you get experience. So I'm like, okay, so if I'm starting as a level 1, like I can't do anything. I can speak publicly. I can speak definitely not with girls. I cannot do anything. I cannot call anyone. I cannot speak on phone. Like I'm a level 1. I'm so bad at this real life game. So what can I do? Okay, I need to do quests, because these quests are going to give me experience, and with enough experience I'm going to unlock a new set of abilities, and hopefully I'll become better in this real life game. So that's how my journey of becoming and beating my social anxiety really began. So I engineered this game where I challenged myself to every day. So in the game, we have daily quests, weekly quests, and I believe, I haven't played in many years, but I believe there are also monthly quests. But I thought, okay, what if I do my daily quests in the real life? Okay, what if every day my daily quest is I have to speak with a stranger? My heart just started to like go through the roof. But in my mind, I knew it. That's the only way. And I remembered, okay, when I thought about doing this public presentation, my heart felt the same, but the experience was way less. Okay, so if I want to develop, if I want to grow in life, I will have to engage with people. I have certain dreams and goals and desires in my life that I will only able to acquire them if I can talk with people, right? So I forced myself to have this daily quest, no matter what was the excuse, no matter if I had, doesn't matter. I have to complete my daily quests. And that's how I started. So I pushed myself to every day talk with a stranger. And you probably think, oh, okay, that's amazing, and now that's how you solve it. Sort of. As you can imagine, at level 1, I was so, like, guys, you have no idea. I was so bad. And I'll give you a few examples. So what I started to do is I used supermarkets to be kind of like my battleground. So I would go to a new supermarket that I never went, because it's kind of easy. You just pick your stuff, and then in essence they just ask you if you if you want to pay by money or by a debit card, and you just say yes or no. But my challenge was I can't just give the standard responses. I need to engage, I need to ask a question, or I need to say something that is beyond the normal script. So I went to the supermarket, and initially I would just be like they would be like, okay, do you want debit card? Do you want the money? And I'll be like, how are you? And they would be like, I'm good. So what do you want? And then I'll be like, oh my god, like I'm so bad at this, like and I'll never return to that same place again. So I would go to a different supermarket in the next day. And in that new supermarket, I would basically do the exact same process. Hello! And they were like, okay, so do you want debit card or pay with money? Money. And I'll just run away and never come back to the same supermarket again. And I kept basically doing this every single day. I'll just go to the supermarket and try to use a new phrase. Like I started with "How are you?" But I was so awkward. Like, guys, you have no idea. I'll just be like screaming at them, like, and do this awkward face. And what happened was I just kept going, and I really understood in that precise moment that I just wanted to quit. Like my mind, like my inner voice was just screaming at me, like you are so terrible. Like you cannot really develop. Like communicating is not for you. But there's something that I believe now that really made the difference. I changed my success criteria. So instead of judging my ability by the other person response, My success was based on, did I engage with a new person, in did I say something new or not? And as long as I kept showing up and finding someone new and doing something that was not the normal script, I was winning. I was getting experience. I was completing my daily quests. And over time, that's actually started to give me confidence because I was winning. I was not getting a positive response, but I was winning the game because I was showing up. So now, and now in psychology, it's called inoculation against stress or against fear. Getting rejected or having these awkward responses, they were not so daunting anymore because I was getting them every day, but I was winning. So that kept me in the game. And there's one day where, again, there was this pivotal moment where everything changed. So after my, I don't know, probably 20th attempt, and being rejected. And when I mean rejected, it's not like people are rejecting me like go away. It's just that I'm attempting to connect with them and they are just giving this all awkward face like, dude, what are you doing? And one day I was again in the supermarket, and there was a guy in front of me, or I think it was like next to me, or the other person, and he was just angry. He was just frustrated. He was just yelling and really being mean. He was saying things like, "Oh, you guys, you really deserve this position. Like you don't do even this small thing that like you just have to pass the items through the scanner. Even this you take so long. Like it no matter you guys get the minimal wages." Like it was really being mean. And I remember that day that when I came to the woman, instead of my typical awkward approach like, hello, hi, um, just remembering, it's so cringe. I did something different. Instead of these awkward phrases, I did something like, it must be really tough to be in your position, having to deal with this type of customers that don't really value you, they don't really see you as a human being, and then you have to go through this every day, just having to deal and handle these people while still being respectful to them, must be so hard. Guys, don't ask me how did I did it, okay? But she basically stared at me and she started to cry. In my mind, I was like, Tiago, you like, okay, you have to give up. Like you clearly are not fit for this. Like when you say something, people either cringe at you, they either make these awkward faces, or they start to cry. So, dude, just shut it. Like, just call it off. Like, try to find something else. But then she looked at me and she started to cry and she told me, thank you. Thank you. Finally, someone gets us. Finally, someone sees the difficulty, the pain that we have to go in this position and in this role. Thank you. Thank you, young guy. And then I was like, okay. Because like my arsenal was finished. I did not know, okay, what can I do now? Like I did not know really what to say next. But that's really when everything changed for me, because I realized that it was not about me having the skill or the ability or being born as a beautiful communicator. It was about knowing how to communicate, because when I changed the approach, I changed the outcome. So I was like, okay, telling something about their feelings and how they feel and validating them made them open up for me. They did not do those awkward faces anymore. And I just, since that moment, I just try to, up until today, what I do is I just try something new. I look at the data, I see if it works or not. If it works, I try to understand why, and I just do more of that. And that's basically how I change from being this awkward and social, like, and having this paralyzing fear every time that I had to speak up, to now basically being very comfortable speaking publicly, communicating with other people. Because I, since that moment, I still have kind of the same challenge, not to the same extent. I don't have to every day go and talk with a stranger, but I still push myself very frequently to do something that I'm not very comfortable. And the reason why I started this channel is also because of that, because I, over time, grew up my confidence speaking in publicly and with groups. But I never really liked cameras and pictures and the way kind of I looked. So I was always like avoiding pictures in social media, because I had this low self-esteem, and I knew it that, okay, despite being very confident speaking with people in a group environment today, when I go to organizations and I'm teaching a workshop, I have been pushing myself from this other thing that I know that I'm still very uncomfortable. So, and I also was, through those trainings, I was receiving a lot of positive feedback on, okay, that was what you are teaching here is impacting very positively our lives. So there's also an element that I will hopefully reach more people in this way than just a group of 15 or 20 people, right? But there's another element which is still kind of part of this game mentality that I bring is, okay, what is an area in my life where I'm very uncomfortable yet? Okay, that's where I need to go. Because in that moment, when I started those daily quests, I also pushed myself to basically go and find jobs that, in essence, pushed me to confront my fears. So my first job was as a recruiter. So I had to basically spend my entire day making calls, talking with people on phones, and making interviews, calling them for interviews, and I was recruiting people. So since that moment, when I was delivering my presentation, I understood that my fears, the fears in my head, are always stronger than the reality. And then when I applied my game philosophy to the real life, and I started to see, okay, I just need to do more, because doing more will unlock not only my ability to do it and to be comfortable doing it, but also it will give me experience, and this experience will unlock new ways of doing. And when I'm doing these new ways and I see results, that's very encouraging, that's very motivating, and that's basically where how I become today. And I'm able to communicate with passion, with conviction, with determination, because I just played the game. So guys, I want you to take the most important thing from this video is you need to step out in the confidence. Even if you believe, even if you are struggling with something, you still have to go and fight for it, because until you step into the unknown, you will never reach the promised land. In cognitive psychology, there's a method that we often use in therapy called ABDCE. This was developed by Albert Eli. It is a cognitive behavioral framework that we often use with people in order to help them identify and then to change negative thought patterns. So I want you to see this, okay? So A stands for activating event, B for belief, C for consequence, D for dispute, and E for effect, which I changed in my personal approach. I changed the E from effect to empowerment. Or empower. Okay, so this is quite simple. So let's imagine that A, activating event. So it's what happened, it's the fact. So let's imagine that you have a friend or a partner, whatever, and you send a message, and that person, you see that they read the message, but they don't reply. Okay, so that's the activating event. Okay, so you send a message and they don't reply. A, activate event. So what happened? B, what do you believe about it? Okay, so what is your thought process? What is your cognition about it? Okay, maybe you think they didn't see it. Well, they checked, so that would not be the case, but you would probably imagine that, oh, maybe they are busy or they hate me, whatever is your belief. Okay, C stands for consequence. Okay, so what is the consequence? How do you feel about it? Okay, so what is the consequence of the thought that you are having, the belief that you are having about that? D, how can you dispute? What other alternative viewpoints can you find that could possibly challenge the narrow view that you are having in this event? And finally, effect or empower is how can I make a new assumption about this belief that is actually more productive or empowering? And I'll give you this example. So let's make two scenarios. One scenario, someone sends me a message, they don't reply for a couple of days. My belief is, let's say, they hate me, they don't care about me, they don't value this relationship enough. As a consequence of believing that, probably I'll feel hurt, I'll feel sad, I'll feel angry, and probably what happened is I'll either not text them back, or in other cases, that person that is having this current belief will send another message in a more angry tone. Okay? Now, what we want to do is to start disputing that. Is, okay, maybe everything is making me see this viewpoint. Maybe most things are making me feel that this is the most likely probabilistic scenario here. Because most people will say me, yeah, because he makes this all the time. This is his typical behavior. And what this means is that my brain has collected enough evidence to now predict in a high likelihood that this is the most likely scenario. But that doesn't mean it is actually true. That doesn't mean that this time maybe he had something that is preventing him from replying. Maybe something serious happened. Okay, so I can dispute by, okay, what other alternative viewpoints, even if I don't really believe that they happen, but what other alternatives can I find for this situation? Okay, maybe he saw it but something happened, maybe he didn't even see it, it was his daughter that checked the phone, maybe he saw when he was driving and then completely forgot to reply. So what other alternatives can I find? And finally, how can I empower this belief? Okay, because let's be honest, believing that this person hates me and is doing on purpose because they don't care about me, it's not, especially if it's someone that I care, it's not really going to bring anything good for them, for me and in general to the world, having this type of beliefs. Okay, so a more empowering one is, okay, even if I really think that probably this attitude or behavior that I'm seeing here can mean X because this person on a regular basis does this, what other more encouraging viewpoints can I take in this case? Okay, so let's go back to the same example. Someone did not text me. Initially, my whole belief was they don't care about me, so that made me, as a consequence, feel angry and frustrated and just want to punch them. As a dispute is, okay, maybe I'm kind of jumping the gun here, maybe there is something that happened, okay? So what is a new belief? What is a new way that I can see? Okay, maybe something happened, okay? Maybe something happened, so well, maybe something happened and I, as a consequence, can check with him again. So now my behavior is actually influenced because this is the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT is my cognitions, the way I interpret the reality, my beliefs, they will then influence my emotions. Okay, so how I interpret, what I believe is going to influence how I feel. So if I believe that he does not care about me or about the relationship, if that's my thought and my belief, my emotion will be, I'll be angry, frustrated, feel injustice, and so on. Now, if my belief is maybe he just have ADHD and he's all over the place and he just keeps forgetting things, and that doesn't really mean that he does not care about people, he just have a different way of demonstrating it. Okay, now my emotion is actually like maybe empathy. It's like, how can I help him? Okay, or even understanding and connecting with him. Okay, and then our influences, so cognitive behavioral therapy, so it's my cognitions influence my emotions and my emotions then influence my behaviors. So the way I feel is going to, it does not dictate what we do, but it influences greatly. Okay, so if I believe that maybe something happened with him or that's a chance, now my behavior, instead of shaming and condemning him, will be maybe I'll text him and just say, look, I have texted you 2 weeks ago and I did not receive a response, just checking in, is everything all right? And that's it. Okay, so this model is actually very handy every time we are facing any sort of fear or stepping into anything new, because again, our mind and our brain works by predicting the reality based on our past experience and what we are told. So if I'm stepping into something new and my brain is jumping ahead and telling me that I'm going to die, maybe believing that is going to put me in a state where I'm overwhelmed and stressed. Okay, and actually, just a bonus tip, they found that they made a study and they found that people that are overwhelmed and stressed, just this change, it's called cognitive reframing. Just reframing your interpretation about the stress from being something bad, that, oh God, I'm so overwhelmed, like life is so hard, this is so challenged, which then makes our body, triggers our cortisol, and basically we have all these nasty negative consequences and impact in our immune system and so on. But they found that if we actually reframe it as it's hard, but it's a positive thing. For example, yeah, I'm going through a challenging time. I have a lot of my plate. Sometimes it's not easy, but having this, it's making me grow. Just this tweak, they found that it was the difference between our bodies reacting from a negative state and destroying itself to actually building and becoming more resilient. So the negative effects were reverted. And we see also this with trauma. It's commonly known as post-traumatic growth. So you go through a challenging, very traumatic experience, but then if in a way you can change and reframe that experience to something positive, either for your own life or to others, then you are going to bounce back in a way that actually is going to empower you and creating you with more resilience and strength than if you believe that you are someone that is a victim. So changing from a victim mindset to a survivor mindset is basically what we are doing here. Changing the meaning, because changing the meaning and how we see the world is going to influence how we feel about it, and how we feel it is going to impact how we deal with it, what we do with it. And ultimately, our behaviors, our actions are then it's what's builds our reality. Because again, if I send the message angry and in a way that I'm shaming and condemning, probably that person will feel judged and will react in the same manner, right? So I'm kind of co-creating this negative relationship just because I did not reframe my beliefs and my thoughts in a way that is more encouraging and empowering. So, and this is something that we all struggle with, this inner voice that at times shames us and condemns us and is quick to judge other people, right? And this is a model that, again, going back to the roots, is what am I missing here? We kind of have also to bring our own humility to it. And again, sometimes if you are a believer, it can be like, okay, let me see what the Word of God tells me about this. Okay, instead of believing this inner voice that is shaming me or telling me he deserves to be punished and he deserves what this negative behavior. Now I'm going to challenge, and I'm going to, okay, let me see what other alternatives, what the Word of God says about this. Or if you are not believer, if you are a non-believer, you are going to, okay, what is another alternative way to look at this that is more empowering and better in general? Okay, so this is a really good and practical method that you can immediately start to apply, and you can do this with everything in your life, in terms of how you manage your emotions, but also in terms of your relationships. In Ephesians 4, from verses 22 to 24, we can read, "You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on a new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness." Change doesn't happen when fear disappears. It happens the moment that we stop listening to this voice saying that I can't, that I'm not enough, and that we take one step, even one small step, into a new direction, into a new territory, into a new place. That's when the old self starts to lose its grip, its power, and when this new self starts to emerge. Because every action, every decision, every choice that we make, it's creating the new person that we are becoming. Transformation isn't waiting for the right circumstance, for the right timing, or when fear finally disappears. It begins the second that we have hope, that we have faith and confidence, and that we take, even if it's one small action, into a new direction, but a direction that is aligned with this new person, with his new self that we are growing into. It's a choice. It's a courageous decision that we take. And it always starts within. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I hope it was valuable and you could extract some nuggets, and I'll see you in the next video.